Hi, welcome back to another Terranscapes question and answer. I haven't done one of these in quite a while, and I forgot I had a folder that I had set up, another email account I should say, and I was thinking, where are all the question and answers? Like, nobody's sending them in, and then I've got that email account, I opened it up, there's a bunch, and actually just the right amount to do an episode, so it all worked out well. But our first question, which I'll get to in just a second, is from a gentleman who's been waiting quite a while, so I just want to thank him for being patient. If you are new to the Terranscapes question and answers, I will put a menu up above here that goes to each of the questions with a little tiny description. The questions will also be time-stamped in the description down below, and if you are interested in submitting a question, you probably should take a look at all the previous episodes to see if that question has already been asked. And you obviously don't have to watch the whole episode, but you can already look in the description and just see if any of those questions match what you are interested in. And who knows, you might find a nugget of goodness somewhere in there that you didn't even know you were digging for. So, with all of that said, let's begin. Spencer Whipple writes, is there someone who represents a level of work you consider above your own? There are many. There are quite a few, actually, and I have been collecting them, and not bodies, just their links and websites, and putting them into a special folder, and for no reason other than I want to know who's out there, who's doing work I admire and can draw inspiration from. And the list is kind of long, there's several, and it'd be nice to show you all the images of some of their work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate video, probably right after this one. And is my mic moving? No, okay. And I will set it up just as a slideshow. Put the name of the artist, throw some slides across the screen for you to see what kind of work they do, and then you can get a sense of, what other kinds of artists are out there. And I will say it's not all terrain in the very traditional sense in which people view it, but it's similar styled work and the kind of direction. We'll give you some insight about the kind of direction I'd like to go in the future, although it's a day-to-day thing. Where will we go? I don't know. Of course, I'll take you along. You don't know where we're going to end up. I don't know where I'm going to end up. Anyway, now I blather. Let's see here. Frank Bartlett. Recently, I've found some of my self-made OOMOO 30 molds have begun sticking to the resin upon demolding. Normally, I do not use a release agent, although I have Ease Release 200. Most of the items I make are glass smooth, and the release agent makes them have a matte finish. My question, is the sticking due to A, switching from Easy Cast Clear to Amazing Cast Clear, or B, normal aging of the silicone, or C, some other reason I don't know? Is there a mold release that won't give a matte finish? All right, so there's a lot in there, and actually there's something that I mentioned, just thought of that's not even in my notes. But can I just say, Frank, I did a lot of research for this one. I didn't want to come to this with a bunch of I don't knows. So I actually dug around and tried to learn about these Easy Cast Clear resins, close enough, and also, how different kinds of resins react with rubbers and release agents and all of that. So hopefully my answer, I don't have a great answer for you, but at least it's as mildly informed as I could make it. So for those of you who are watching who don't know these products, OOMOO is a 1-to-1 mix ratio silicone rubber. It's tin catalyzed, and it's produced by Smooth-On. And Ease Release is a release agent from Smooth-On as well, spraying the mold. I can't remember exactly what the base of that is. I think it's a wax release agent. Don't hold me to that, though, because I think you can use it to separate silicone from silicone. So, first of all release agents create a matte finish on the product that you cast, and that's just physics, right? Because when you deposit a spray, right, it's going to create a dimpled surface, so that's going to really create a matte surface in your subsequent cast. And I did not see anybody mention how to avoid that other than buffing it out. Get some polishing compound and buff that out, and get a nice, brilliant shine back to it. Now the sticking may be due to a couple things. One is the age of the mold, and OOMOO is a very inexpensive, we'll put that in air quotes because silicones are never cheap, but it's a low-cost silicone, and because it's tin catalyzed, it will break down, and you will see it start to break down typically within about a year for its library life. Different compounds that you cast into it could attack the rubber and speed up that decay, and also change the properties of the rubber at the surface of the union. So it could be the age of the rubber and how many times you've cast into it. It also could be the property of the Easy Cast resin, and you've seemed to imply that you've cast many times with it, so it's probably not that exclusively, but I did learn that I think it's an epoxy resin. How do they not say that on their label, on their technical data sheet, on their MSDS sheet? Nowhere does it say what kind of resin it is. Best I can tell from digging around is that it's an epoxy resin, which would be different than a polyurethane resin, which is what my Polyoptic 1411 is. So a polyurethane resin might give you better results, and there are crystal clear versions. Obviously Polyoptic is one choice. I'm pointing over there because that's where the ocean boards are. You could also get a crystal clear from Luminlight, and you can also get one from Smooth On. And I found a place you could get the Smooth On version. It's at the Complete Sculptor, but it's about the same price as the Polyoptic. And I think the Polyoptic has more variation of options because you can add retarders or accelerants to it to speed up its cure time. That's a little bit of a tangent there, but you might try a polyurethane, and just for comparison purposes, if you bought 2 of the Easy Cast, 8-ounce bottles, right? It's a pint kit. If you bought 2 of those, you'd be in for maybe, say, $30, and to get the same amount in Polyoptic as a urethane resin would be about $45. So it's not a huge price difference depending on how much you're pouring and what kind of work you're doing. So I also saw somebody recommending platinum silicones, so you might try that. And if it's something you're doing regularly, might as well move to platinum anyway. They last forever. They have such better properties, tear resistance, all over the place. So I would do that. And they have 1-to-1 mix ratios of silicones at Smooth On, and I would check their durometer. And I actually did a video a ways back. I'm not going to find it and put a link. There's a video I did about how to understand the labels of a silicone or urethane rubber or resin. It goes back maybe a year, and I don't even know what it's titled. So maybe somebody in the comments, if you remember what that video is, put it there, and then if people are curious about what are all these numbers he keeps talking about, they can go and check that out. Let's see. Corian Kredgefeld, I think I pronounced that right, I looked it up, said that he wants to introduce himself. He lives in the Netherlands, and he is the European distributor of balsa foam. And he just saw my recent review of balsa foam and really liked it. He thought my enthusiasm was contagious. I like that. Thank you. And he asks if he can publish it on his own website to help expand exposure to balsa foam in Europe. I'm happy to have that happen. Feel free. It'd be nice if it linked back to maybe my YouTube channel, just so, people can, at least follow that through and see what other kinds of reviews I do, which actually might help, because I always feel like, what's the quality of this person giving this review? What kinds of other things do they do? So it's not bad to do that just to try to give a more accurate presentation of the review itself. And in the future, if you are a supplier or of another product, or you are interested in using my videos to support some other product or anything like that, just email me, because I can't remember how long this was sitting in here, but it was sitting quite a while because I don't check Q&As very regularly. So feel free to email me and we can talk about it. Alex Garcia writes, I love your videos and decided to drop a line and see if you have an unbiased airbrush compressor recommendation for the average skill level miniature painter. Most of the big names on YouTube seem to be sponsored by one brand or another. Well, the short answer is I'm not the best person to ask about airbrushes. I'm a very minimalist airbrush user, and it's only usually for shading effects. I don't do really high-end painting with it. I need to practice more, and it's just something I don't take out of the shelves often enough. But my understanding on airbrushes is don't spend a lot of money, especially if you're new to it. I bought a pretty nice one, and I can't remember the name of it, Silverline or something like that. And you know what? The gear exceeds my skill, so what's the point? And buy a cheap one if it's your first brush anyway, because you're going to abuse it and do things with it that you probably shouldn't, and bend the tip and do all sorts of stuff like that. You don't want to have an expensive brush. And there's a lot of cheap brushes out there. You want a double action. Beyond that, look on Amazon for reviews. That's what I was thinking earlier. Maybe you could find a few different airbrushes and see what people think about them. Double action, though, is really important. That's where you can apply variable pressure for the air volume. Well, not for the air volume, but for the paint spray. So you push it down to activate the air, and then you pull it back to release paint, as opposed to a single action, which is just push and spray. So the other thing I wanted to mention is the compressor that I got, though, is one I do recommend. It's called the TC20T. It's $80, and it came to me from TCP Global, and they sell airbrush gear, airbrushes, compressors, all sorts of airbrush-related supplies and paints and things like that. So they're a great one-stop shopping, at least just to see an array of products that are available. And from my research, I always do too much, and so I'm trying to find a good price, and I seem to think that they must have then had a pretty good price when I bought my compressor from them, the TC20T. It's got an external air tank. I forget how much it holds, maybe I don't think it holds quite a gallon, and it's a relatively quiet compressor as well. So, and I've pushed it beyond what it should normally do and gotten it quite hot, and it still works. So I think it's a great compressor for its price. Try Bowen writes, is it normal for a project you take on to run for a year? Looking at the videos, you kicked this off, this is the Ocean Board project, in August of 2014, and looks like you will finish it late this month. Late this month. Really close, though. Do you normally set an SLA? Just curious. And then he says that I have inspired changes in some of the work that he has been doing. So I had to look it up. I don't know what an SLA is. Obviously, I don't use one. It's a service level agreement and stipulates contractual agreements between the two parties involved in the exchange. It's a bit more formal than anything I would normally do or want to do, but it also can include things like a turnaround time. No, I don't use any of that. So I just time warped. I had answered this last question a while ago, and then I never edited this Q&A, and it's actually been languishing for, I think, several months, maybe more. And in some ways that's good, because this last question I think I needed a little more reflection on. The question is, I'm just going to read it from the screen here. Excuse me. Troy writes, is it normal for a project you take on to run for a year? Looking at the videos, you kicked off this in August of 2014, and it looks like you will finish late this month. Do you normally set an SLA, which is a service level agreement? Just curious. I think your pieces are amazing and have inspired changes in the things I'm working on, always learning something new. So thank you for that, Troy. That's a huge reward for me doing these videos. And that's sincere. It's a real big part of why I come back. But Troy's question required some thinking, and I actually answered it way back, and then I just skimmed some of that just now before I shot this video, and I realized that what I was talking about then isn't quite as pertinent, and this reflection time I think will help me answer that question a little bit better. So first of all, how long does a project normally take? A year? Well, yes and no. Yes, for a project this size. This project is the largest I've done in sheer size and scope. And it's the most challenging in terms of techniques because it's all water. And I always think water is one of the most difficult things to model, or to model well in terrain or dioramas. So that has led to this long period of time. But no, if I didn't have so many problems along the way, such as the cliff casts and their joins, and the unifying the seams between the water, and unifying the color, and to be fair, doing some of the order of operations incorrectly, so I had to go back and redo some things, and doing the clear coat on the boards, and then having that set back and having to grind that all off. So those problems added a tremendous amount of time. But what added to that is is really pushing myself to new limits, and trying to make really big improvements. And that required a lot of testing and led to some of those problems because they're things I had never done before. And so when I'm, delving into new areas, there's going to be a learning curve. And I also pushed for really big improvements for myself and for the quality of this work. And that meant that I was going into new areas that I hadn't done before. And that's what led to some of those challenges and some of those problems, because you can't just do new things and have them all work right the first time. And I was trying a ton of new things with this, using and selecting the right caulking to make the waves, making the foam, the technique for the foam behind the waves, and shaping the waves, making the surf, sealing even the seaweed to the shore without it looking wet in the sand. And I actually have a long list here. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let's just say a ton of new things to try to figure out and to do to make this a significant step up from previous work, which is always my goal. So that added a lot of time to the project. I've spent 3 times the labor on this project than any of my previous projects to date, including the castle and the big cliff piece that I did. So that partly explains this year-long process, really, to get this done. And part of that is because this project is unique. There's no project I've ever done in the past that's like this. So that uniqueness feeds into all of those things I was just talking about. It's unprecedented in its size and style, and the quality of techniques I wanted to bring to bear to it. But ultimately, I have a cat playing with a cat toy in front of me. But ultimately, it's also related to the fact that it wasn't meeting my vision, and I wasn't going to stop on it until it did. And that is, a pro and a con. I'm the kind of guy who never says that's good enough, and that can be. What's the word I want to look for? Let's see what I wrote down. That can be a pro in terms of pushing me harder to improve, but it can also be a con when it sometimes borders on being a little self-destructive in some choices. I wouldn't say some of this action has been the best choice for Terranscapes as a business, but it's kind of who I am, and that's the way I roll. So in the end, it took that long to complete because, in summary, it was being done by me, and that's the way it is. So I expect large projects, which I'm kind of eager to make the norm, is going to be of a similar type challenge, duration. And you mentioned, I didn't address it, even in my notes, you mentioned, do I normally set an SLA, a service level agreement? I actually had to look that up a little bit. And the answer is no, but the answer is now yes. So I'm actually working on a letter of agreement, service level agreement with a potential client on a big project, and that will hopefully be finalized soon. If it doesn't, we'll move on. We'll find another project. I think it's going to come through though, and that is becoming more important as these projects get larger and larger because there's more money involved for the client. And it's also important to try to set boundaries for me in terms of what I should be providing to the client in terms of updates and a timeline for completion and incentives and penalties around that. And you know, there's several factors going into it that I didn't really think about previously until I started drafting up this agreement. And I'm glad to do it because it's really going to be beneficial to both me and clients going forward. And it's something that I probably should have had in place for this project. But again, I'm learning. And that was this project was like, ooh, wow, that was different. I better think about that for projects going forward. So yes, I will be having SLAs going forward. And since it took so long to get to the final wrap-up of this Q&A, I went back into the Q&A email and I found the last question that just came in that I haven't answered yet. So, excuse me, a little hair there. So Justin writes, "Hi, I'm trying to make my own add-in tiles for the Realms of Battle. I want to make a refinery and a shipping container loading crane. Question is, I want to mimic the texture on the Realms of Battle onto 2 square foot tiles of MDF so they don't look out of place. Any suggestions? I have used the standard texture in a 4-color desert scheme, so if I use sand and flock, it would look out of place." So he's saying he's painted the tiles in this color scheme, and if he tries to use sand and flock on another board, it's not going to match in texture. I do have some Vinamold compound. I did a review and some explanations of trials and tribulations with Vinamold. If you want to go into my product review playlist, you can find it there. And toyed with the idea of taking a cast from one of the tiles, then adding a layer of plaster onto the MDF, assuming casting from the mold, and then customize with other features. Many thanks for your advice. So, first, I would not use Vinamold, and the reason is that I wouldn't make the cast from plaster. So very quickly, for those who aren't familiar, Vinamold is a melt compound. You heat it up, you melt it, and you pour it to make a mold, and then you can later reheat it and melt it and use it over and over. The reason I wouldn't use plaster is that MDF is pretty flexible, and if you put plaster on that and it flexes at all, your plaster is going to crack, unless it's a very thick layer of plaster. That is the biggest issue. So, and I wouldn't try to pour. I mean, the Realm of Battle tiles and their profile is probably, let's call that just under 1/2 inch maybe, ballpark. And so if you're using MDF that's 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna be pouring, I don't know, what would that be, 2/16 plus, yeah, so 3/16 worth of plaster for a thickness. That's a lot, I think. And so, and if you drop it at all, it's gonna crack anyway. So I would not do that. So I would cast with a resin, and the reason then I wouldn't use Vinamold is resins are usually exothermic. They give off heat when they cure, and sometimes that can melt your Vinamold. This is what I've been told. I haven't tried it, but it makes sense. So don't use the Vinamold. That's my opinion. I would use a silicone rubber. You could use a urethane rubber, but the price difference isn't that much, and the silicone is going to be a guaranteed self-releasing. So use a silicone rubber, make your mold, and cast that with resin. And then if you needed to, you could make I guess I call it a baffle system, right? A comb system between your MDF and the resin cast to lift your cast up to the proper height. So you could get, I mean, you could even do it with hardboard, but, strips of wood, right? And you make a cross pattern across the 2-foot tile that will raise your cast up to that height, and then it won't add any extra weight, really. Well, it's some, but I mean, it won't be really heavy, and it will also give it a lot of rigidity. And if you look, flip your Realms of Battle tiles over, and you'll see that's what GW does. Underneath, they have a grid work to make sure that the cast is hollow, but still is rigid, and that gives it a lot of support. So that's what I would do. There's some work involved, of course, but that was my thinking. An alternative, real quick, off the top of my head, would be to make your resin cast apply it to your MDF, and then instead of building the whole thing up, just build the end up as a slope that will connect with those tiles, and then you don't have to build up the rest of the tile to that height, and that might be easier. Problem being, you can't use it internally in the set because all the three other edges are not going to match it. Well, maybe if you did two, right, then you could match two sides. It's up to you, right? It all depends. If you're going to match all four sides and make it totally modular, then you're going to have to lift the whole sheet up. But use resin. It's going to give you excellent durability. You're not going to have to worry about it chipping when you're playing or scratching it and white coming through. That's my go-to suggestion. If you're going to do it, you're going to put in all that work, do it right, and it'll open up all sorts of casting possibilities for you down the road. So I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. If you are interested in submitting a question to the Q&A, of course, there's the little, wait a minute, there's the little linky grouping over here, and that goes to a Gmail email, and please send it there. That way I won't miss it, and usually I let them build up for a little bit, 4 or 5 at least, and then I'll come back and do another episode. Hopefully I won't stop in the middle of it and take 6 months before I can finish it. But if you are submitting it soon, it may be a little bit of a wait. If you're Justin and you submitted it relatively recently, he got lucky and he got it answered a little more quickly. So if it's something really, really pressing, like I have to get this fixed this week because I have a tournament coming up and I need to have this thing done, then just email me directly and I'll see if I can just shoot you a quick couple tips on it. But I really like people submitting to the Q&A because it gives me a chance to answer it for everybody, and it becomes a resource for other people to come back and check out. If you're interested in submitting a question, you should go back and look at my other Q&As to see if I've already answered it. I have all the questions in the description. They're all time-stamped, so go back and look through them in the playlist and see if the question you're interested in has already been answered. And that's part of why I like doing these, because they become a resource. So hopefully that was helpful. If you're new to the channel and you're just dropping in, you're like, what is all this Q&A stuff? Hopefully you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining me and joining the channel. It's really means a lot to me, and it makes me feel good to know that people are getting something out of these videos. So I appreciate that. Questions and comments, always welcome down below. I don't think I've been mentioning that lately. Questions and comments, always welcome down below. I'm actually catching up on comments, but I don't want to, I can't say that too loud because I could fall behind at any moment, but I am working on them. And hopefully, after you leave your comment, you will come back and join me for another Q&A or other video, because you know that I will be back soon with another Terranscapes video. Is there someone who represents a level of work you consider above your own? Start this again. Troy writes, sorry, Troy. Troy writes, is it normal for a project to take on to, wait a minute. I'm going to have to help Troy here. Troy writes, is it normal for a project to take a year to run? He's saying it to finish, I guess. Jesus, what the hell kind of sentence is that, Troy? Is it normal for a project you take on to run for a year? Oh, well, I guess it's okay. All right, try it again. Sit up, come on, come on. Tall, proud, heart forward, happy, smiling. And is terrible. Cut that out. Jesus.